Hi everyone. So today we'll be starting with dental casting alloy. So first we'll discuss the definition and working characteristics. Then after the classification, we'll talk about four major alloys. One is the gold alloy. This is the one where 90% of the questions are framed. Then we'll discuss silver palladium alloy. And under the base metal alloy, we have nickel based and cobalt chromium alloy. And since titanium is being used a lot, we'll talk about titanium and titanium alloy. Okay, so starting with what is casting first. Imagine if a patient came to you and you saw that the teeth was completely decayed, right? So you would advise them to get a cap or a metal crown which would look something like this. So the process by which we make this metal crown, that is called casting, and we are studying dental casting alloy. So the metals which will be used to make this crown, those are the casting alloy. Now, so how will I make the crown? I will first take an impression of the tooth, okay? Then I will form a die and then I'll form a wax pattern. Over it, I'll invest the wax pattern in a gypsum product. So this gray thing is the gypsum, right? Gypsum or phosphate bonded, any investment material, whatever is required. Then this mold will be formed after evaporating of the wax, and I will pour in the metal which I want to use for making the cap or the crown, right? So it will come out something like this, right? Just remember that during casting, what happens is your metal and this cap structure, this shrinks. Okay, in general this shrinks, and the investment material, it generally expands. Okay, so this shrinks, and the expenditure of this expansion of this gypsum material, it compensates for that shrinkage. Okay, so just remember that. Now talking about the definition. Dental casting alloys are metals that are specifically formulated to produce dental restorations. So these are basically the metals that are used to make these type of restorations. Okay, what are the characteristics that we want in our dental casting alloy? So it needs to be stiff. Okay, we don't want it to deform under mechanical forces. So any palladium based alloy is generally more stiff than any gold based alloy. Okay, it needs to have resilience. So resilience means absorption of mechanical energy without any plastic deformation. So basically it's similar. When it's under any mechanical force, we don't want it to permanently deform. Okay, then compatibility with porcelain, because a lot of porcelain structures are used. Like this one would be a metal structure underneath it and then a cap of porcelain over it. So it should be compatible with porcelain. We don't want it to tarnish, so we want tarnish resistance, fatigue resistance. So it should again withstand mechanical forces, right? Repeated mechanical forces. Sag resistance, so it should resist creep. Fit, so we want accurate reproduction of whatever mold we put in. We want accurate reproduction. Okay, and then working characteristics, so it should be easy in casting, easy for soldering, and easy for burnishing. So basically easy to work with. Okay, so this is the introduction. Now the metals we use, there are this is just an introduction about the normal categories. This is not the classification. So just know that there are eight noble metals, right? There are eight precious metals, and there are seven noble metals. Okay, so these terms are used often. So precious metals includes all of them. Just remember that silver is a precious metal, but it is not a noble metal because it is slightly reactive in oral cavity. Okay, so silver, although it is used a lot, it is a precious metal, but it does not come under the noble metal. And all these metals that have a yellow underline, they have FCC structure. Okay, now, so this was noble metal and precious metal. Now talking about the base metal. So these are not very valuable. Obviously, you can see all these are expensive metals. Okay, this is not very expensive. They improve the mechanical properties. Okay, they also provide some protection against tarnish. So that is called passivation. And the examples are cobalt, chromium, nickel. So they are also used a lot. We'll see that. Okay. Now coming to the classification. So the classification is divided in three categories. First is based on strength, and this is classification of gold casting alloy only. Okay. Then the second category is based on nobility. and the third is based on description, right? So talking about the first category based on strength and function. So there are four types. First, actually there are six types, six categories under this, but there are four types first. So type 1, type 2, type 3 and type 4, right? And the mechanical properties go on increasing under this. So the hardness will increase from type 1, type 2, type 3 and type 4. Type 4 you can see is extra hard and type 1 is low in hardness. So therefore type 1 is used in small inlays, and type 4 you can see it is used in even partial denture framework. So because this has the best mechanical properties, right? This can be burnished, and type 3 and 4 only these two can be age hardened. We'll discuss this later. Okay, then there is the fifth category is the metal ceramic alloys. So these are basically compatible with porcelain, and they are of two types. So first is hard type. This is used for short span bridges, and the second type it is extra hard, so it is used for long span bridges. Now removable partial denture alloy. So this is the sixth category, and it is used for RPD framework and denture bases. So entire denture bases can be formed using this alloy, right? Now the second basis of classification was nobility. So the alloys are classified based on their nobility. First is highly noble. So this category, to come under this category, you need to have more than 60% of noble metals, and gold needs to be greater than 40%. Then there's second category, that is noble. So for this you need to have greater than 25% of noble metals. Over here it was 60, now it is 25. Now base metal. So base metal alloys they have less than 25%. So anything that has less than 25% of noble metals would come under base metal alloy. Okay, so this is the nobility. Now use. So they are also classified based on what they're used for. So they could be used for inlay, crown and bridges, RPD, metal ceramic processes, and posterior and cores. Okay. Now major element, they're also classified on the basis of what the major element is present in there. So they could be gold based, palladium based, silver based. Okay, number of elements, so they could have one alloy, so they could be like silver gold alloy. They could have two alloys, so nickel chromium cobalt alloy. Okay, so they can be binary, ternary, quaternary. Okay, then there is based on first three principal elements. So this is gold, palladium, silver alloy, palladium, silver, strontium alloy. Okay, sorry, tin alloy. So palladium, silver, tin alloy. So this is based on the principal three main principal metals. Now coming to the third classification based on description, and this is the most important classification. Okay, there are three categories under this, and there is crown and bridge alloy, there is metal ceramic alloy, and there is RPD alloy. So we'll discuss all the three categories. This is the most important classification. Under crown and bridge alloy, there are two types. First is noble metal alloy and base metal alloy. So no, under noble metal we have gold based and non-gold based. Okay, we have gold based and non-gold based, and then in base metal we have nickel based and cobalt based. In gold based, there are two categories. There's type 3 and 4 and low gold. And in non-gold based, we have only one category, that is the silver palladium alloy. Okay. Um, as we move ahead in the chapter, this will be the major category, gold based alloy. We will discuss this in the most in depth, and then we will talk a bit about silver palladium. It is slightly important, not a lot. And then we'll talk about nickel and cobalt based alloy. Okay, so these are the four main categories that we will be studying in this chapter. Now coming to the second category, the metal ceramic alloy. So we have noble metal and base metal alloy. Okay, so they are they both have to be compatible with porcelain because they are for ceramics, so for porcelain bonding. uh, in noble metal we have gold, platinum, palladium. We have gold, palladium, silver alloy, palladium, silver alloy, silver gold alloy, and high palladium alloy. Okay, so these are the various noble metals that are compatible for bonding with porcelain. And for base metal we have nickel chromium, nickel chromium beryllium, cobalt chromium, and titanium alloys. Okay. Then coming to RPD alloys. So first type 4 noble metal, type 4 gold alloys were used for RPDs as well. But now they are replaced by cobalt chromium nickel and titanium alloys. So now remember, if a question comes in, I told you that we will discuss these four alloys, but imagine if a question comes in about metal ceramic alloy, describe metal ceramic alloy. So what will you write in there? So you can see that these major ones, the noble metal alloys, these are gold alloys, okay. And over here you have nickel, just a minute, and under the base metal alloy you have nickel and cobalt based alloy, right? So you can write about nickel and cobalt and gold alloys even in this category if a question comes in. If a question comes in about RPD alloy, so you can write about cobalt chromium alloy, okay? You can write about titanium alloy. So these are the overlapping categories. Anywhere nickel, we will talk about gold based alloys. So anywhere where noble metal comes in, you can talk about gold. Nickel comes in, you can talk about nickel based, and cobalt comes in, you can talk about cobalt based alloys. Okay, so now coming to the first category, that is the gold alloys, high noble alloy, right? So in the gold alloy we have gold, of course, this is the major element, and then we have many other metals. We can have silver, platinum, palladium, nickel, zinc. Okay, so why do we need to add these elements? Because they increase the physical properties, so they provide more strength. Pure gold is very soft, that it cannot be used alone, right? And it decreases the cost as well, so it makes it cheaper. Now there are two categories, there's yellow gold alloy and there's white gold alloy. Okay, so it is based on the appearance. Application, so it can be used in inlays and onlays, crown and bridges, and RPD frameworks. Okay, now RPD is removable partial denture. Okay, allowing properties. So what are the ideal properties that we want from our alloy? Okay, so it should increase corrosion resistance, so it should not corrode. It should have good biocompatibility, so it should not react in the oral environment. Good mechanical properties, should provide basically better mechanical properties to the gold, and improved castability, density, and cost. So cost should be reduced, and it should improve the castability and make the procedure easier. It shouldn't be too difficult to work with. Okay, so those are the qualities we want from our gold alloy. Now, from the other metals that we used along with gold. Now coming to the composition of the gold alloy. So we have four types of gold alloy. Okay, in the first type we have maximum gold. We have 83% gold. Second type we have 77% gold. Then we have 75, and then we have 69% gold. Okay, coming to copper. So copper is increasing. You can see in type 3 and 4 we have the highest amount of copper, 9 and 10%, and in type 1 and 2 we have 6 and 7%. Since they have a high amount of copper, they can be age hardened. Okay, the others can't be. So type 1 and 2 can't be age hardened. Type 3 and 4 can be age hardened because they have high amount of copper. Now coming to silver. So type 1 has 10% silver, type 2 has 14% silver, so this has the maximum silver, and then type 3 has 11% and type 4 has 12.5% silver. Palladium, so type 1 has 0.5%, type 2 has 1%, and both type 3 and 4 have 3.5%. Platinum is an expensive metal, only type 4 has 3% of platinum, and all other metals are in balanced quantities. Okay, now talking about the function of each of the elements. So what qualities does each of these elements provide to the alloy? Okay, now gold, it is the major element. It provides tarnish and corrosion resistance and ductility and malleability. Okay, copper, it is the principal hardener, so it makes the alloy hard and fracture resistant. Okay, it reduces the melting point and density of gold. Why reducing density is important, I'll talk about that later, and melting point also, we'll talk about these 2 points later. But we want low melting point and low density. Okay, it provides a reddish color which is not really desirable. It helps to age harden. So we'll talk about age hardening later as well. It decreases the resistance to tarnish and corrosion. So ideally when it's under 16%, it decreases, okay, sorry. So it decreases the resistance to tarnish and corrosion. So it makes the alloy tarnish faster. Okay. So that is not desirable. So to prevent that from happening, we want it under 16%. If it's over 16%, it will make the alloy tarnish. Now the third element, silver, it whitens the alloy. So now we don't really prefer a yellow color. So we want whitening of the alloy. It counteracts the reddish color. So I told you the reddish color was not a desirable property. So it counteracts the reddish color. It increases the strength and hardness, so improves mechanical properties, and this also decreases tarnish resistance. So you would have noticed that silver tarnishes easily, so this is not a desirable property as well. Now talking about platinum, platinum increases strength and corrosion resistance, increases melting point, we don't want that, but it has whitening effect. Okay, it decreases grain size. So I'll tell you why we want reduced grain size as well. Now coming to palladium. Palladium has similar properties to platinum. Okay, it is just cheaper, so we want it. Palladium is just cheaper platinum, right? Now zinc. Why is zinc important? So zinc is O2 scavenger. What happens is when the silver is melting, it absorbs a lot of oxygen, and when it is hardening again, it will release this oxygen, but since this oxygen is escaping from a solid, it creates porosity, right? So we don't want that. So zinc, it it traps all this oxygen and takes it away, so silver can't absorb it. So this is an O2 scavenger and it is very important, right? Now indium has similar function to zinc. It is a zinc. It is an O2 scavenger. It is not tarnished by moisture, and sometimes in certain palladium silver alloys, it can even be up to 30%. Okay. Now, tin and iron, they harden the metal. Nothing specific. Gallium, it reduces the coefficient of thermal expansion. Okay. So it prevents the alloy from expanding too much. Okay. When the alloy is silver free, so silver not being there makes the alloy expand a lot, so this compensates for that. The gallium reduces coefficient of thermal expansion when silver is not there. Now iridium, ruthenium and rhenium, they reduce the grain size as well like platinum. And why do we want low grain size, smaller grain size? Because it is better in aesthetics, it will look smoother. The larger grain size, the surface will look rough. It increases the workability, so it is easier to work with. It increases the strength as well because there will be better packing in the alloy itself, and it decreases wear resistance. So these are the reasons why we want smaller grain size in our alloy. Okay, so now talking about the properties, and the first property we'll discuss is density, right? So I was talking about preferring lower density. So why do we prefer lower density? Is density is inversely proportional to the number of restorations, right? So if something has, let's say, density of 1 and something has a density of 10, so it is inversely proportional to the number of restorations. So the metal with a density of 10, maybe I can only form 3 restorations out of it. But the metal which has a density of 1, I can form 5 restorations out of it. So obviously this one is the density 1 is cheaper for me. Okay, because I can make 5 restorations out of just 1 gram, out of just 1 unit. Okay, but density is also directly proportional to castability. So it is easier to cast with higher density metals. Okay, so type 3 alloy has a density of 15.5 gram, and type 4 gold alloy has a density of 15.2 grams. So type 4 one is less dense and therefore better, right? We generally want lower density. Now talking about the melting range. So I told you melting range was also important, and why do we want lower melting range? So the range, you can see there is a lower limit and there is an upper limit. Okay. So the upper limit is when it is called liquidus. So when all the metals are in the liquid state, that is the upper limit. But the upper limit, it decides the casting temperature. So if you add 75 to 100 degrees on the upper limit of the melting range of that alloy, you will get the casting temperature, right? And casting temperature is important because if your casting temperature is very high, it's gonna cost me more to generate more heat. So we always want low casting temperature, and therefore we want low melting range. We want metals that will have a lower upper limit, right? Similarly, the lower limit is also important because it decides the maximum soldering temperature, but that is not that significant as the casting temperature. Okay, so we always want metals with lower casting temperature and lower melting range. Now, type 1 and 4 should have lower fusion temperature if gypsum bonded investment are to be used. So gypsum, you would know that they are not very good for investment at higher temperatures. So if we are using gypsum as an investment material, we want lower melting ranges, lower fusion temperature. So type 3 has a temperature of the upper limit is 960 degrees, and type 4 the upper limit is 943 degrees. So you can see type 4 is better again over here. Now talking about the mechanical properties, first is the yield strength. Okay, so the capacity to withstand mechanical stresses without deformation, without any permanent deformation. So type 4 has better yield strength. Again, hardness, talking about hardness. So hardness is required for clinical use, right? We don't want your metal to deform within your mouth. We want it to have a certain set structure. Okay, so it is slightly similar to yield strength, and type 4 again is harder, so it has better qualities. Elongation, so this is ductility. Okay, we want a bit of ductility when we are forming, when we are trying to fit the structure in the mouth, we want certain ductility. But and ductility is inversely proportional to brittleness, right? So we want the metal to be slightly flexible under the forces. We don't want it to just shatter down under the forces, so that's why we want some ductility. And type uh, type 3 has slightly better ductility than type 4. So in this case, type 3 is the better one. Now modulus of elasticity, it is also similar to ductility, and you can see gold alloys are better in terms of elasticity, right? Tarnish and corrosion. So gold, it does not undergo any tarnish and corrosion. It is better than high noble metal because it has high noble metal content. Okay, so gold is better than all other alloys. Now talking about the casting shrinkage, so I told you in the first slide itself that when we are investing this molten metal in here, this metal will undergo shrinkage. Okay, so this metal, it will undergo shrinkage. It will come out to be something like this, and this mold, it will expand, right? So this mold and the empty space, the investment material will expand. So it will make the empty space slightly bigger. So these two will slightly compensate for each other. Okay. So casting shrinkage is also important. We don't want a metal that shrinks a lot. Okay. So casting shrinkage, it is less in gold alloys than base metal alloys. Okay, it is 1.25 to 1.6%, and it must be controlled and compensated in the casting technique, right? So there are three stages of casting shrinkage. We should know about this. First shrinkage is when we melt the metal and it is in liquid metal state. Okay, so first shrinking will happen then when the metal is transforming from liquid to solid, then that is the second stage of shrinking. And even when it's in the solid state and it is coming from the hot temperature to the room temperature, even then it will shrink a little. So there are three stages of casting shrinkage, right? Now sorry, the ninth property we'll be talking about, it is the biocompatibility. So gold has good biocompatibility, And casting investment, so the investment material we are using for investment, generally gypsum is used for gold metal alloys. Okay, it has low fusion temperature, so the other alloys that are not gold, they have a higher fusion temperature or a higher melting range, so it requires a phosphate bonded investment. Gypsum, it can work only with low melting point metals, so that is gold. Now, heat treatment of gold alloys. So this is a very important topic. We use heat treatment to harden the alloy, okay, to improve, I'll just zoom in, to alter the mechanical properties. So to improve the mechanical properties, we do heat treatment, okay. We can only heat treat type 3 and 4 alloy because it, sorry for that. So we can only heat treat type 3 and 4 gold alloys because it has, if you remember, 9 and 10% of copper. So a high copper content is very important for heat treatment. Okay. Now there are two type of heat treatment. First is the softening treatment. It is also called solution heat treatment. And the second is hardening heat treatment. And it is called edge hardening, right? So, for why do we use softening heat treatment? So, it is for appliances that need to be grounded. So, that is grinding, shaped, or cold work. So, hammered or like deformed to give it more strength. So, any restoration that needs to undergo these processes, and softening heat treatment is done for that. And hardening heat treatment is done for partial dentures, saddle bridges. Okay, important thing is that the softening heat treatment increases the ductility, but the hardening heat treatment decreases the ductility. And the softening heat treatment will decrease all the other mechanical properties, and the hardening heat treatment will increase the hardness, strength, and all the other mechanical properties. Okay. Now, now coming to the method of heat treatment, first try and look at this diagram. Okay, this will make understanding everything easier for you. So there are two heat treatments. First there is softening and then there is age hardening, right? Now in the softening, first before the age hardening, softening treatment is generally done. So what happens in the softening treatment? I have this metal alloy, okay? So all the gray portion you can see it is all the other metals and the yellow is the gold. Okay, I melt it at 700 degrees for 10 minutes, right? When I melt it, what will happen is that these particles will go on and they will form this ordered structure. Okay, this is called the homogeneous phase. So they will form this ordered structure, and then I will quickly quench it in water, rapid quenching, so that I lock in all the metals, uh, all the alloy in that ordered structure, and I quickly lock it in there. I don't allow it to move. What this makes happen, what happens is that this provides ductility. So you can see an ordered structure over, right, over here. So since the structure is similar over here and over here, it is all homogeneous, this makes sliding very easy. Okay, so there are no blockades in sliding. Okay, it make because the structure is so uniform, and since this makes sliding easy, this increases the ductility, right? So this is the softening heat treatment. In the hardening heat treatment, what I'll do is I have done all this beforehand. So in the hardening heat treatment also, right? After this, when my sorry, just a second, can't erase this. Yes. So in the hardening, age hardening, what I'll do, I have done this softening heat treatment and I have this ordered metal. I will heat it again, but not as much. Over here, you can see it was 700 degrees for 10 minutes. I will only heat it up to 450 degrees. Okay, it depends on the composition of the alloy, but definitely not as much heat as I was giving in the previous case. And what this heat will do, it will allow slight movement. Okay, so it will allow slight movement of this metal alloy particles, and they will come together. They will form they will like this is called an ordered structure, although this is the disordered one, but this is called the ordered structure. So they will come together and they will form these blockades. Okay, so now if I divide this in equal parts, right, Now I can't slide this. This makes because they are holding on to each other so together. Now I can't slide this. So the ductility has decreased. If you look over here, the ductility has decreased and the hardness will increase because now it is very difficult to cut it from. Uh, Now it is very difficult to move it or cut it from any angle, any place. Okay, so just a second. So this is how the ductility will decrease and the hardness will increase. Another point is that over here when I cool it down, I don't do rapid quenching. Okay, I don't quickly cool it down. This will undergo slow cooling. Why so? So that all these particles they can come together. Because if I cool them down rapidly, they can't come together. This slow cooling will allow these particles to accumulate and form this bundles. Okay, this is not called bundles, but just for the sake of explanation, this is how age hardening takes place. Now, talking about the softening heat treatment. So I told you we heat the metal for 10 minutes at 700 degrees. What this does is intermediate phase is to disordered solid solution. Right, so what this makes is a disordered solid solution that allows everything, all the metals to dissolve into each other, okay? And then it is quenched rapidly in water, so it prevents ordering during cooling. So it prevents that clumping in or bundling of the alloy metals together, okay? So this is called a disordered solution, and this is called the ordered solution. I know it. If you think about it, it's the opposite, but this is what it's called. Now, hardening heat treatment. So first, the softening heat treatment is done to relieve all the stresses. Then aging at a definite temperature, which is generally between 200 to 450 degrees, is done. So aging is just this heating thing. For 15 to 30 minutes it is heated and then it is water quenched and it is cooled slowly, so all these particles can come in together and they can form this ordered solution. So this is called the ordered solution. Intermediate phases change to ordered solution. So this is the, if you remember, this is intermediate phase and this is ordered solution. Okay, so this is the entire heat treatment of gold alloys. Now, and the two less important topics. First is gold alloy, low gold alloy. So it is called economy gold. It was mainly developed because gold was really expensive. It contains gold less than 60%. And to make this, you need to really carefully balance silver and copper. Okay, to obtain the similar mechanical properties, and one advantage is that this is more resistant to tarnish, right? Because it has palladium, so it is more resistant to tarnish, and other mechanical properties are similar to type 3 and 4 gold alloy. Now talking about the silver palladium alloy, so it is also an alternative to gold alloy. It mainly contains silver. Palladium is at least 25%, okay? And since it's a noble metal, it provides resistance to tarnish. Properties are again similar to type 3 and 4 gold alloy because it's an alternative, but this has lower ductility and lower corrosion resistance, okay? So low gold alloy had a better corrosion resistance, but this one has a lower corrosion resistance. And this has a lower density than gold alloy, so which is a good thing. Now talking about the composition, so we have two types of silver palladium alloy. First is silver palladium and second is silver palladium copper. So the silver palladium alloy has 70% silver and 25, it has greater than 70% silver and 25% palladium, and this has around 60% silver, 25% palladium and 15% copper. The silver palladium alloy is similar to type 3 gold alloy, and the silver palladium copper alloy is similar to type 4 gold alloy, okay, in terms of the properties. Now coming to the base metal alloy. So if I just go back, when we were talking about the classification, I told you that we had these four major categories: the gold based, the non-gold based, the nickel based, and the cobalt based. So we are done with the gold based, we are done with the non-gold based, that is the silver palladium. Now we'll talk about the base metal alloys, that is the nickel and the cobalt based alloys. Okay, just a second. So coming to the nickel based alloy, first to come under the category of base metal alloy, um, by ADS specification number 14, the base metal alloy should contain greater than 85% of cobalt, nickel, and chromium. Okay, so that is a must um, for the base metal alloy. So for nickel based alloy, the first category, there are mainly two categories that come under it. There is nickel chromium molybdenum alloy and nickel chromium alloy. These are mainly used in metal ceramic restoration. So as I told you, if a question comes in for metal ceramic alloys, you can write about nickel based alloy. Okay. Talking about the properties, the really important property in here is the biological property. Okay. So the both the nickel and there is also beryllium, some amount of beryllium present in this alloy. So nickel is allergic. It causes allergic reaction, and it can also cause lung cancer on prolonged exposures. Okay. Similarly, beryllium causes dermatitis, and upon inhalation, it causes berylliosis, which is granuloma of the lungs. So it is basically a solid mass will form inside your lungs. Okay. Talking about the precautions, so the maximum precaution you can take is having a ventilated place where all this casting is going on and wearing masks. Okay. Talking about the chemical properties, so there is an oxide layer which prevents tarnishing. So an oxide layer is very important for two reasons. First, it prevents tarnishing, and second, for anything that requires ceramic restoration. Okay, for metal and ceramic bonding. So this is the metal cap and you will have a ceramic over it, right? Ceramic tooth over it. So for bonding between these two, we always want an oxide layer on the metal. It makes the bonding better. Okay, so that's why an oxide layer is very important. Then the melting range is 1304 degrees Celsius. It's pretty high compared to the gold alloy. Coefficient of thermal expansion mismatches with the ceramic, so it is not similar to the ceramic. Right, talking about the physical properties, so the density, it is less than the gold alloy. Hardness, yield strength, so it has similar mechanical properties. That's why it's used in metal ceramic restorations, right? Sag resistance is high, casting shrinkage is high. We don't want that, that is not really preferred. And porcelain bonding, so it is good in porcelain bonding, that is the major cause. It is used for metal ceramic restorations. Now coming to the advantages and disadvantages. This is less expensive, it is more resistant to tarnish and corrosion. Well, not more than gold, but it is resistant to tarnish and corrosion. It has lower density, so it can produce more units of restoration per unit or per gram. Okay. Greater difficulty. This does not mean anything. Okay. It has greater percentage elongation. Okay. So it is more ductile and it is therefore it is less brittle than cobalt chromium alloy. Okay, so talking about the nickel and the cobalt base, so it is better than the cobalt alloy in terms of elasticity. Now talking about the disadvantages, so it has a high fusion temperature, so we always want a low fusion temperature. It has high hardness, so it is maybe too hard, it is too stiff. You can see over here that the modulus of elasticity is very low, so it is very stiff, so it is very hard. We want slightly more flexible metal, slightly more flexible metal, and it has a lot of health hazards. So that was the major problem because it causes the dermatitis and cancer and everything. Now coming to the fourth category, the cobalt chromium alloys. Okay, fourth category of the total and the second category of the base metal alloys. So it is also called stellite, and it is called stellite because it has a very shiny appearance. Okay, star-like appearance, that is called. It has high strength and corrosion resistance, so it is one of the advantages. Now applications, so it is used as in denture base, so it will form the complete metallic denture base and we place teeth on it. Okay, cast RPD framework, and it is also used in some surgical processes. Now coming to the composition, So 50% is cobalt, then 20% and 20% is chromium and nickel. So these are the major elements. And then we have some amount of molybdenum, iron, carbon. The quantity is very specific. Okay, it can also contain copper and manganese and many other metals. Now talking about the function of the major metals. So cobalt, it provides the strength and rigidity and it increases the melting point. Okay, chromium, it provides the tarnish and the corrosion resistance, and maximum it can be used up to 30%. Okay, nickel increases ductility. All other metals, these ones, they provide hardening effect. Okay, so they are hardeners and deoxidizers, so similar to what zinc was doing. And carbon, so the amount 0.4% is very specific because in low quantities it forms a carbide with metal which provides strength, hardness and ductility. Okay, so it provides all the good mechanical properties, but if it is too much in excess it causes brittleness. Okay, so it makes the structure weaker, so we don't want that. Now talking about the properties, so the first, so it replaced the Type 4 gold alloy. So cobalt chromium alloy is a replacement for Type 4 gold alloy because Type 4 gold alloy was obviously expensive. So this cobalt based alloys are less expensive and they have better mechanical properties or similar mechanical properties. So talking about the density, it is half of gold alloy, so that is better. Talking about the casting temperature is higher than the gold alloy, not exactly preferred, but that is what we have, right? So type 1 has a fusion temperature of greater than 1300 degrees, so that is called high fusion, and type 2 has a fusion temperature of less than 1300 degrees, that is low fusion. So there are two categories in the cobalt chromium alloy. Now talking about the yield strength, it is higher than gold alloy, so a positive. Ductility lower than gold alloy, not exactly preferred. Modulus of elasticity half of gold alloy. So since it is the elasticity is later, is half of gold alloy, we also use like reduced thickness, right? We reduce thickness when the elasticity is not too great. Now hardness, it is 50% harder than the gold alloy. Tarnish and corrosion resistance, chromium oxide layer is present, so it provides resistance. The passive effect we talked about, so an oxide layer will form over the metal and it will protect it from tarnishing. Right, casting shrinkage, it is greater than gold, so again not preferred. That's why the use in crown and bridges where we need very exact accurate fit, it is not used in there. It is used in large areas like denture base and framework where casting shrinkage is not that significant. Okay, not that it does not affect the quality that significantly. Now talking about the titanium alloys, so this is the fifth category, and titanium is used a lot for implant, so we'll discuss this. So now in titanium alloys we have two types. First is the pure titanium alloy, and second is where we mix titanium with some other metals. Okay, so in the pure titanium alloy, we have 100% titanium by weight. There is some oxygen and iron also present. That is not significant in terms of weight. Okay. Advantages is that this has excellent biocompatibility, so it is not reactive in your oral environment. It has very good tarnish and corrosion resistance and good mechanical properties. The disadvantages of pure titanium alloy is it has a very high melting point, it has, and it is active at high temperature, so it is not exactly inert at high temperature. It may react with the surrounding environment. Okay, and it has a poor fit, so not exact reproduction of what details we want. Okay, now talking about the second category, the titanium alloys. So it has titanium and some other metals. The other metals are added to reduce the melting point and the casting temperature. So that was a disadvantage with the pure titanium alloy, right? Talking about the composition, so the two most commonly used titanium alloys are T30PD and titanium 6 aluminum 4 vanadium. Okay, so this is the name and this also describes the composition. So in T30PD we have titanium 70% and 30PD is 30 palladium. Okay, everything else is in trace elements. Now titanium 6 aluminum 4V, so that is the name. we have 6% of aluminum, so 6Al and 4V. We have 4% of vanadium and rest all is titanium. Now talking about the advantages of this one, it has good biocompatibility again. It aggravates bone growth. Okay, so it is used in implants. That's why it has good tarnish and corrosion resistance, good mechanical properties, and forms oxide layers. So similar to the titanium one. It has low density as well. Now disadvantages, it is expensive, it is oxygen sensitive. Okay, so since it reacts with oxygen, we want phosphate bonded investment material. Gypsum bonded investment material don't work in here. Also because it has high fusion temperature. Okay, so because this has high fusion temperature, we need phosphate bonded investment material in here, and um, tungsten arc or investment melting is needed. So basically special techniques for melting is needed because it has high fusion temperature, right? Now applications, so it is used for metal ceramic restorations, it is used for dental implant, it is used for partial denture, complete denture, and bar connectors. Okay, so this is it for casting, dental casting alloy. I hope you like it. Thank you.